The courthouse hallway was humming, but not with voices. It was the kind of hum that lived in heels tapping tile, murmured prayers whispered into collars, the shuffle of case files and the unspoken tension that came when too many people waited for justice in a place where justice often arrived late, if at all. The air smelled of coffee gone cold, linoleum warmed by sunlight, and the quiet fear of people who'd learned that dignity doesn't always survive long past the metal detectors. That's when Officer Colin Mercer stepped in. He didn't walk. He moved, like an armored truck through soft clay. Broad chest, stiff shoulders, jaw clenched tight enough to cut stone. His boots didn't just hit the ground, they announced him. Not because anyone was waiting, but because he wanted them to flinch. The way power sometimes does when it's unchecked for too long. He scanned the hallway like it belonged to him. To Colin, a uniform wasn't just protection, it was permission. Permission to size people up, to draw lines in invisible places, to treat silence as suspicion and skin tone as probable cause. Near the benches stood a woman, still, calm, not hidden, not filming, just present. Her blouse was dark gray. Slacks are neatly pressed, no jewelry, no badge on display, early 40s maybe. Her hands held a small black bag. Her posture said she wasn't nervous. Her eyes said she'd seen this building before, maybe too many times. Colin didn't ask who she was. He didn't wonder. He just barked, ID. She didn't flinch, didn't reach. She simply looked at him, quiet, measured, not defiant, just steady. That stillness, it unsettled him. So he escalated. One hand yanked her bag off her shoulder. The other grabbed her wrist, twisted her toward the wall. The sound of metal cuffs locking rang out louder than any gavel inside the courtroom. Her shoulder hit the wall first, then her cheek. It wasn't a shove, it was a statement, and it echoed. A few people gasped. Someone pressed record, no one intervened, because when a badge moves with force, most people freeze. Not from apathy, but from training. They'd seen this before, and so had she. But she didn't cry out. She didn't protest. She didn't say a single word. She just turned her face slowly and looked at Colin Mercer like she was reading him. Not afraid, not surprised, just confirming something she already suspected. Colin's knuckles were white around the cuffs, his breath sharp through flared nostrils. His face said authority, but his hands, they twitched, just barely. Because power, when it's not met with fear, becomes unsure of itself. He waited for her to yell, to accuse, to break character, so he could justify everything. She didn't. She only looked at him. And then, after what felt like a full minute sealed in silence, she stepped back. Not roughly, not in a rush. She brushed off her sleeve with the grace of someone who wasn't afraid to wear the dust of someone else's mistake. Then she reached into her wallet, flipped it open, and held up a badge. Gold shield, police blue, raised silver letters. Chief Celeste Raymond, Eastboro Police Department. At first, it didn't register. Then a young officer at the far end of the hallway gasped. Someone dropped a pen, and somewhere behind a half-open courtroom door, even a judge paused mid-sentence. But Celeste didn't need fanfare. She looked Colin Mercer directly in the eyes and spoke, calm and clear. I was sworn in yesterday. Today I came to observe how justice is applied in this building. She paused, let the silence settle. Then, like closing a book that didn't deserve another page, she added, and now I've seen exactly what I needed to. Colin didn't speak. He couldn't. His hand drifted away from his radio, unsure of itself. His eyes suddenly became smaller. And the hallway, it didn't erupt. It froze like the moment before a storm realizes the wind has shifted. The hallway never recovered. Not really. It resumed its noise. Heels, files, murmurs. But something had cracked, even if no one said it aloud. Colin Mercer didn't speak again that morning. He didn't cuff anyone else. He just stood near the courtroom door, arms folded too tightly, jaw locked in a way that tried to say unbothered, but looked far more like cornered. Chief Celeste Raymond didn't stay in the hallway. She didn't issue a public reprimand. She didn't shout. She simply walked through the side entrance, past the metal badge readers, past the clerks who suddenly couldn't make eye contact, and into the administrative review room, a quiet space with beige walls and a long wooden table that had heard too many apologies and too few truths. Half an hour later, she summoned him. "Mercer, in here." No rank, no sir, just the tone of someone who didn't need elevation to stand taller. Colin entered stiffly, still carrying that badge-heavy gait, but it didn't land the way it used to. There were no deputies behind him, no desk sergeant at his back, just Celeste, already inside, standing at the head of the table, a thick file in her hand and a small black flash drive resting next to it, like a scalpel waiting for a surgeon. She didn't sit, not yet. "Before you say anything," she said, voice quiet but full, "look through this." She slid the folder across the table. He didn't take it. She opened it for him. One page, then another. Incident reports, disciplinary memos that never made it to HR. Screenshot after screenshot from internal emails. Body cam stills where faces blurred, but patterns didn't. A pattern of force first, questions later, reports sanitized, victims invisible. "You think no one was watching?" Celeste said. "But someone always is. A bystander, a victim, or a rookie who isn't as loyal to your silence as you thought." Colin scoffed, leaned back, classic pivot to contempt. "This is garbage," he muttered. "You drag me in here to humiliate me. Flex your new title. You already did that out there, Chief." He spat the word like a challenge. "You think I didn't see it in your eyes? That this was that personal?" Celeste finally sat. Her movements were calm but surgical, like she was dissecting a lie in real time. "You didn't humiliate me, Officer Mercer," she said. "You humiliated the badge." He blinked. "Excuse me? That uniform doesn't give you the right to shove, profile, or dominate," she said, voice like stone underwater, quiet but impossible to ignore. "It gives you the responsibility to protect, to exercise restraint. You forgot that." She paused, then added, "Worse, you taught others to forget it too." Colin barked a short, bitter laugh. "You've been chief for what, 2 days? And now you think you're the moral compass of the department?" He shoved the file back towards her. It didn't slide far. "This is a witch hunt," he said. "Complaints from people who hate cops. None of this holds up." Celeste didn't respond immediately. She reached into her jacket pocket and placed a small object on top of the folder, a plain black flash drive. "That's from the locker room camera," she said softly. "You thought it was off. It wasn't." Colin's posture shifted, almost imperceptibly, but it was there, a flicker, a twitch in the shoulders. "That's you telling a rookie to handle the loud ones early. That's you laughing when a man with a stutter was cuffed before he could explain he was a witness, not a suspect." He clenched his fists. "You don't know what it's like out there," he snapped. "You walk in here with speeches and a shiny new title." "Don't talk to me about what it's like out there," she interrupted, voice still even, but sharp enough to cut steel. "I was watched while doing everything right. I memorized protocol twice as hard because I knew I wouldn't get a second chance if I slipped once." She leaned back. "The difference between you and me, Mercer, I never used the badge as a shield. I carried it as a weight." For the first time, he had no answer. She stood, collected the file, the drive. "This isn't revenge," she said as she walked to the door. "It's reckoning." Her hand paused on the handle. You built your career on fear. That only works until someone stops being afraid. She turned her head slightly, just enough to let him see her face. You've been the loudest voice in this building for years, Colin. Let's see how you handle silence. And with that, she left him alone, surrounded by the only sound left, the hum of the fluorescent light overhead, and the echo of a career beginning to collapse under its weight. It started with a clip, just 23 seconds long. Grainy, tilted, shaky, the kind of video people usually scroll past without sound. But this one made them stop. A cracked sidewalk, the edge of a patrol car, a teenage boy, maybe 15, standing still with his hands halfway raised. His backpack was already on the ground. You could hear his voice, soft, almost too quiet for the microphone. I didn't do anything. I was just... Then the shove. Officer Colin Mercer surged forward, grabbing the boy by the collar and slamming him to the pavement. The boy hit hard, shoulder first, and there was a sound, a snap, audible even through poor audio. The boy screamed once, sharp and short, then silence. The clip froze on his face, eyes wide, mouth open, one hand cradling his arm, the other twitching on instinct. The kind of image that doesn't leave you, that makes you stop scrolling. It was posted by Raya Miles, no caption, no hashtags, just the date. 6 years ago, Crestwood County, my little brother. By noon, it was on every major feed. News anchors repeated the footage like a mantra. Activists dissected the body language. Retired officers weighed in, cautiously, hesitantly. And the internet? It caught fire. Our justice for Devin, I remember his name, our silence, is broken because the boy in the video was Devin Miles. Back then, the news called it resisting arrest. Local headlines showed his mugshot, not his injury. The case never went to trial. Charges quietly dropped. No disciplinary action taken. His arm healed crooked. But now the world saw what the courtroom never did. That evening, Raya stood in front of a single camera. No lights, no podium, just a brick wall and a mic. Her voice didn't shake. 6 years ago, my brother was assaulted by Officer Colin Mercer. He wasn't a threat. He wasn't a suspect. He was a kid who missed his bus and was reading a comic book on the curb. She looked straight into the lens. What Mercer broke that day wasn't just Devin's arm. He broke our trust. And then everyone else helped him bury it. She paused, let it land, let it linger. But I'm not here for an apology. I'm here so no one else has to stay quiet like we did. And then the sentence that wrapped itself around every viewer's chest like a cold hand. If you think silence keeps you safe, it doesn't. It just delays the truth. The broadcast lasted 2 minutes. By morning, it had 8 million views. The fallout was immediate. Major media networks ran full retrospectives on Devin's case. Independent watchdog groups reopened calls for Mercer's previous reports to be re-examined. Anonymous tips flooded Celeste Raymond's inbox. Some came from within the department. Even officers in other precincts began quietly unfollowing Mercer on social media. Celeste had already been awake when she saw the video, 5:30 a.m., coffee untouched, light just breaking through her window. The subject line in the email from a media contact read simply, "You need this." She watched it once, then again. Then she sat in silence as the sun rose, hands folded, jaw tight, not with anger, but with confirmation. Because she remembered Devin Miles. She remembered how the report framed it. Failure to comply, the officer responded with necessary force. She remembered there had been no body cam footage submitted, no internal inquiry, just a paperwork trail that ended in silence. But now the silence had ruptured. At 7 o'clock a.m., Celeste walked into the station. The air inside was different. Not loud, not hostile, just aware. The kind of quiet that follows a shift. When people realize the temperature has changed but don't know what to do with the cold. Mercer wasn't there. He'd taken a sick day, but the murmurs were. At the coffee station, an officer scrolled on her phone, then quickly turned it over. At her desk, a junior clerk stared at a blinking cursor while a ticker bar above her screen read, Devin Miles video reignites call for police accountability. No one said Mercer's name aloud, but everyone felt it. And for the first time in years, the badge on their chest didn't feel like armor. It felt like a mirror. Celeste stood at her office window, arms crossed, watching as the department tried to pretend it hadn't seen what it couldn't unsee. This wasn't just about a video. It was about a culture waking up, and it wasn't going back to sleep. Monday morning arrived like it always did. Too early and too bright, too loud. But not for Colin Mercer. When he stepped through the front doors of the Eastboro Police Department, there was no noise. No morning Mercer, no shoulder clap, no familiar sarcasm from the front desk, just the hiss of the automatic door behind him closing with the finality of a vault. He walked through the main hallway like a ghost through his own life. Uniform crisp, badge still clipped to his chest. But something was wrong. Something was missing. Recognition. People saw him, but their eyes didn't linger. They slid away like rain off glass. The new rookie in the break room didn't even nod, just quietly turned his body, shielding his coffee cup with both hands like it might spill if Mercer got too close. At the bulletin board, someone pinned up a new flyer. It fluttered slightly as Mercer passed by. He didn't read it, didn't need to. He felt it. He opened his inbox at his desk, keyboard waiting, screen bright. At the top, subject, administrative leave, effective immediately. No greeting, no explanation. Just a PDF with his name, badge number, in the words, pending internal review. He stared at the screen longer than he meant to, then leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling like maybe something overhead could tell him this wasn't happening. It didn't. He typed fast. Heated, defensive, subject, urgent, department undermined. He wrote, Chief Raymond is tearing this department apart. She's feeding a narrative that makes officers like me the enemy. If we don't act, morale will collapse. We need leadership. We need to push back. We need to be respected again. He hit send. 10 minutes later, he got a reply from Chief Raymond herself, one sentence. No, you tore it apart. I'm just cleaning up. That was all. No signature, no pleasantries, no room for rebuttal. Later that afternoon, the email leaked. No one knew how, but it spread like quiet fire. First to the internal group chat, then a subreddit. Then it appeared in the local news, anonymously, delicately, but unmistakably. Mercer's words, hanging beneath the quote, she's tearing us apart. And beneath that, a single anonymous reply from another officer. No, sir, we were already broken. She just turned on the lights. The shift wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was worse. It was isolation. The next day, Mercer came back to clean out his locker. No official escort, no cameras, just a box, a hallway, and a man trying to carry the last pieces of something he no longer belonged to. He passed Lieutenant Carter, talking to two younger officers. As soon as they saw him, the conversation stopped. Not dramatically, just ended. Carter tilted her head slightly, but said nothing. Another officer who used to joke with him gave a polite smile that never reached his eyes. No one offered help. No one asked where he was going, not because they hated him, because they had already stopped believing he deserved the badge. He paused outside the locker room. A rookie, barely 20, passed by and instinctively covered the Academy logo on his shirt as Mercer came near. Not out of fear, out of distance, out of shame. Mercer froze. That cut deeper than any headline. When he reached the chief's office, the door was shut. He knocked once, it opened. Celeste Raymond stood there. No expression, no coldness, just composure. She stepped aside and let him in. His jacket was already folded neatly in a box. The coffee mug he used for 10 years, gone. The plaque from his locker, still intact but lying flat. Even his framed photo with past colleagues had been removed. "What is this?" he asked. But he knew. Celeste stepped behind her desk, opened a folder, and spoke without looking up. "Effective today, your employment is terminated." He swallowed, said nothing. She closed the file, placed her pen on top, looked him in the eyes. "No need for a trial that people have already judged." She didn't mean the internet. She meant the hallway, the silence, the looks that no longer came, the loyalty that left when the truth surfaced. He looked around one last time, hoping, foolishly, for someone to say something. Celeste stood. "You can go. There's nothing left for you here." That broke him. Not the termination, not the public fallout. That sentence, "There's nothing left for you here." He turned, opened the door. No one looked up. No one glanced back. No final salute. Just footsteps on tile and a box in his hands. And outside, in the bright morning light, he paused. Looked down at the nameplate inside the box. And for the first time, it didn't look like his name anymore. The following week, the walls of the East Borough Police Department didn't just feel different. They breathed differently. There were no celebratory speeches, no press conferences, no banners reading "New Era." Just smaller, quieter things. A notice posted on the break room corkboard titled "Listening Hours, All Officers Welcome," in Chief Raymond's handwriting. A new photograph framed and placed where the old chief's portrait had been. Not of a person, but a black and white image of the community garden on Westwood Avenue, the one started by local youth after an officer helped them reclaim an abandoned lot. A new policy slipped into every mailbox. First engagement protocol, handwritten addendum in blue ink at the top. Lead with presence, not with pressure. Celeste didn't celebrate Mercer's removal. She didn't speak of him at all, because this wasn't about his ending. It was about what came next, and who had long been denied the space to begin. The first person she called was Devin Miles, now 21, working nights at a warehouse, shoulders still crooked from the injury, voice still soft. He didn't answer the first time, or the second. On the third try, he picked up and said nothing. She didn't apologize. She didn't make promises. She simply asked, "Would you meet with me?" He came to the station through the back entrance. She met him in the hallway, not in her office, not in an interrogation room. Just a bench, 2 cups of tea, and the sound of 2 people reclaiming breath from years of silence. He didn't want money. He didn't want a headline. What he wanted, what he'd never received, was acknowledgement. And now, looking into the eyes of the highest-ranking officer in the building, he got it. She said, "We should have protected you." He said, "You were the first one to say that." They sat for over an hour, not talking about the past, but about what kind of department would have made him feel safe back then, and how to make sure the next Devin never has to survive what he did. By the end of the month, Celeste had reinstated 3 internal affairs investigations that had been buried. 2 civilian review boards were established. She brought in mental health experts, not for public appearances, but to sit in ride-alongs, to listen, to guide. She made uncomfortable hires. Activists who once protested outside the station were now part of the advisory council inside. Some officers balked, some quietly retired, but others, young, unsure, watching, stayed. Not out of loyalty to tradition, but because they saw something they'd never seen from leadership before: conviction without cruelty. One morning, Celeste walked through the precinct lobby and saw a rookie officer kneeling beside an elderly woman with a cane. He wasn't rushing her. He wasn't checking his watch. He was just listening, just waiting for her to finish her thought before pointing her to the records office. The woman touched his arm lightly and whispered, "Thank you for not hurrying me." And he smiled genuinely, as if no badge had ever taught him to do otherwise. Celeste didn't interrupt. She didn't commend him. She simply paused quietly and nodded to herself. Because change doesn't announce itself, it appears in small details. Outside, the neighborhood had started noticing. The mail carrier waved again. The corner grocer didn't look down when a patrol car passed. Children walked their bikes past the station without crossing to the other side of the street. And once, just once, a woman walking her dog stopped to speak to Celeste near the sidewalk. "We watched it all," she said. "We saw what you did. And I just wanted to say, some of us were waiting for someone like you for a long time." Then she added softly, "I just didn't know you'd come wearing a badge." Celeste nodded. She didn't say thank you. She didn't promise anything. She just said, "We're not done." And she meant it, because justice isn't a press release. It's 100 small acts done after the noise has faded, after the villains are gone, when no one is watching, and when everything that matters still needs rebuilding from the ground up. Moral of the story: power doesn't reveal who we are. It reveals who we pretend to be when we believe no one's watching. But silence isn't safety, and tradition isn't truth. True justice doesn't begin when the wrongdoers fall. It begins when the quiet came one's rise. And in a world too used to cruelty dressed as order, sometimes the most radical act is to lead with compassion and let dignity be louder than fear.